Hello and welcome to a Deprogrammed interview on Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I am very excited about today's interview. This is a woman who I've been lucky to meet in real life and hang out with a couple times. Her name's Stephanie. You may know her from My Nerdy Home. She's also a member of the Geeks and Gamers team and is busy editing all kinds of videos. So I'm so blessed and happy that she got to spend time with us today. Please welcome Stephanie. There you are.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for your patience with me and getting this scheduled and just for your time and coming on because you have one of the busiest schedules. You and Lydia from Tim Pool have the busiest schedules of anyone, probably.
Yeah, I try to make space for anybody that I can. So, yeah. I know I edit from pretty much from like the dawn to just going before I go to sleep. So, yeah. I try to make room and space where I can.
So what kinds of for anybody who's not familiar with you, first of all, let's talk about your channel, My Nerdy
Mhm.
Home. When did you start that and what kinds of content do you focus on?
It's funny because I started that channel years ago. And when I started it years ago, and I initially started it as like a makeup channel because I had started like getting into makeup, and it was just something that I kind of wanted to play around with. So I started it as a makeup channel um when I was like learning how to kind of like self-teach myself how to do makeup and everything. So I was watching a bunch of channels and I was like, let me try it myself, see
Yeah.
what I can do. So it started up off as a makeup channel, and then when I kind of like got as much as like I wanted to out of that, it just wasn't fun for me anymore. I took a lot of time off, and then I changed it over to My Nerdy Home because like in my old makeup videos you'll see like Ninja Turtle posters and stuff behind me, and um like there were like a bunch of Funko, like my nerd, I always kept like my nerdiness
You're
hidden, so
geeky.
like yeah, I was like here and there. And then I was like, I'm just gonna start like My Nerdy Home and just talk about like Star Wars and talk about like just topics that I've been reading about and that I really like, and just be outspoken because I was already outspoken, but I was just kind of like, I want to be just another voice out there. So yeah, so then I redid my channel up and just started talking about things that I really like and things that I'm upset about, and just topics that I find interesting.
And about what time was that when you kind of switched and started doing more nerdy,
Um,
geeky pop culture kind of
it was like
commentary?
3 years ago.
That's
Yeah.
that's so interesting. That's around the time when I think we hit some kind of critical mass because you started to see all these people suddenly saying, you know what, I'm like you, I'm
Yeah.
going to get over my fear of saying what I think on the internet, and I'm going to add my voice to the culture conversation
Hmm.
around
Yeah,
that
pretty much.
around that
Yeah, it
time.
was about 3 years ago that I sort of I think it was about 3 years ago, maybe a little over 3 years ago, that I finally was just kind of like, I'm just going to add my voice to the conversation and start putting some thoughts out there, especially after because I initially started just talking about Star Wars. Um, and like I think a lot of people had this happen, where they watched The Last Jedi, and they're
Mhm.
like leaving the theater kind of thinking like, well, that didn't quite feel like Star Wars. And I felt the same way. I was like, that felt more like Twilight than Star Wars, like two
Yeah,
star-crossed lovers. And while I was on YouTube, I like stumbled across Mahler's channel.
I don't know
um
Mahler.
Mahler, he does EFAP.
Okay.
So yeah, I stumbled across Mahler's channel, and he does like super in-depth videos. He puts out like maybe one or two a year because they're incredibly in-depth. They're like long form videos, which is my favorite videos to watch. I love watching long form content. Um, and I would listen. I was listening to his review of The Last Jedi. I was like, holy crap, this is pretty much what it is. Because you leave it and you're like, it doesn't feel right. Like this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I couldn't put my finger on it. And then like from Mahler, I found a whole lot of other people, and then through EFAP, like he would have guests on EFAP, and I found a skew of other people. I started watching their live streams. And I was a lurker for a long time, just sort of listening because I repurposed furniture a lot. So I would put it on and just listen to it while I was working in the garage.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I would just put it on, listen to it while I was working in the garage, and like after a while I started commenting in there, and sort of became like a presence in the chat. And then I think it was John Talks was like one of the first people to have me on his channel to talk about Star Wars. And then yeah.
He's the guy that does some stuff with Nina Infinity, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So you said a lot of people have this story about Star Wars, and I found that to be true. In a lot of the interviews I've done with people who do pop culture commentary,
Mm-hmm.
I always like to ask people, because I think of woke, my old ideology, social justice. I think of it kind of like, and I know a lot of people do, like a zombie virus that sort of
Yeah.
spreads and changes the world. And so I like to find out, like, what was your first moment where you realized something was going on? Like, what was your moment where you realized the
Oh,
world was changing?
oh yeah, I can pinpoint that at least for myself, because like my entire family is like incredibly conservative, but like I always found myself like arguing with them about certain topics, you know, and I was kind of like thinking to myself, oh no, Donald Trump, I really can't stand the man, you know. And they would always ask me like, why? I don't understand why you don't like Donald Trump. And so I would always say like little things that he does and things that bother
Yeah.
me, and really honestly literally parroting stuff that I've like heard, just parroting stuff.
And not
Okay.
realizing it.
And
I
not
used to do that
realizing it.
too.
Yeah, and not realizing it. And so I was like I was listening to a lot of things, right? And then like YouTube auto played for me, and it auto played this video, and I wish I could remember the channel, but it was this video of people coming out saying how like they were almost in like this haze and they woke up, you know, and
Mhm.
Donald Trump was the reason behind that. They were saying that like the media was putting out a whole lot of just bad things about Donald Trump that weren't true. And then they would talk about like I realized that like I watched a video and I realized that he does this on, you know, on multiple occasions. It's just something that he does. And the
Oh,
things that
like
like,
when they said, for example, that he was making fun of a handicapped
yeah, like he was
journalist.
making, yeah,
Right.
and they're like he actually does that on multiple occasions. And it was just like them pointing media stories about Donald Trump and then debunking them and saying like, no, like this is not true. It's categorically untrue. And you know, it was like a video of a bunch of people saying like, you know, you're actually like being lied to. It's a bunch of propaganda to make
Mhm.
you hate the current president. And I was listening to it and I was like, what is this? And I started watching it. Um, and then from there, I like clicked on another video, you know, from that channel. And then like I was recommended another video. And it was really interesting, like taking that sort of opposite view because I've never really I hadn't watched anything prior to that.
Same.
Yeah. And so I was like, holy crap, like this is really interesting because I was never really I was conservative on a lot of views, but on other things I was like, no, 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 no. That's the wrong way of thinking, you know? So it really opened my eyes. So it was a really weird day, and I was like telling this person that I was with at the time, like, have you seen this video? Did you know all of this stuff? Like, look at this video. And I just thought it was really interesting. So yeah, it was a real eye opener. So then like cuz you don't
Y
question things, you know? You know what
yeah,
I mean? Like
you know
you
what, I'm as you're saying this, I'm gonna interject for a second because I can already in my head, I can see what a leftist who's watching this would say. This is what they would say. They would say, look at these 2 girls. This is how they became radicalized by watching videos online."
well, it
And
only
but
took 2 videos then because
but
they're
what
2 really incredible featuring some African American people, might I add. So, yeah, oh my goodness. Uh, but
But what's really happening is that it's the opposite of radicalization, because what you're describing, Stephanie, is actually looking at the source material, which you had never done before.
mhm,
And that's what happened to me too, is actually I had never watched one of his speeches, but I had all these opinions about him and his speeches.
yeah.
And then when you start looking beyond that, they're like, "Oh, you're becoming radicalized." It's like, "Really?" Because what I'm doing is sort of getting out of my little radical echo chamber and looking at the original material, right?
Mhm. They don't want you doing that. They
Yeah.
don't want you doing that. They don't want you to step out of line. They don't want you to step out of place. They want to keep you in that bubble. They want
Yeah.
to to the point where you where you can go online today on Twitter and see this lady put tissue samples in little petri dishes and say, "Look, it's just tissue. See, there's no baby in there." And people believe that, like, looking at the quote tweets are like, "Oh my god, I didn't." These are women quote tweeting this, and they're like, "Oh my god, I didn't know that that's just what a baby was, just a bunch of tissues," because that's, their place. That's their position. It's just a bunch of clumped up cells. See, and you look at that and you're like, "Wow, that is so incredibly misleading and disgusting that you would just do that."
And
Like that.
anti-science.
It's very anti-science and very anti-science.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It
So
was
what
ridiculous.
happened when you had that moment, that day that you can pinpoint when you started to realize, was it sort of like, well, if I could be wrong about this,
I could be
what
wrong
else?
about multiple things, yeah, and so I started, like, just reading, and I would after that, nothing is at face value.
Mhm.
If I saw something, I would, like, research it and realize, "Wow, they're actually wrong about that," or they're making a big deal out of something that's actually not quite that big of a deal. So it was all about, like, questioning something for me.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What happened with your relationship with your conservative family
Oh,
after this?
no, yeah, we're still very conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But were there
we don't have as many arguments. Like, literally,
that
there were times when I was just kind of like, "I don't wanna go over there," because I know they're gonna bring up, like, they always bring up politics, like, all the time. It eventually comes up, and there are
Yeah.
times when I'm like, "I just don't wanna go over there." So I can see why a lot of, like, super liberal people can just write off their family. You
Yeah.
know? Because at times I'm like, "Oh, I don't wanna go over there. I know that they're gonna bring something up about Trump, or they're gonna bring something up. It's gonna get political. I don't wanna go." So I can see, because I had those thoughts, I'm like, "I don't wanna go." And it would only be for, like, maybe an hour visit or something, and I'd be like, "I don't wanna go." But I would go anyways. Um, so I can see how a lot of especially if you're, like, in it, deep
Mhm.
in it, how they can just completely write off their families.
It's
You
easier for them to, like,
Yeah,
just divorce themselves from their family like a
yeah.
cult, and
Exactly, but, like, me and my family were already extremely close, so it would be really hard for for someone to pull me away from them. It's gonna take more than politics.
that's that's great. I wonder if that's why you were open-minded enough to even stumble on that video, or that, like, the fact that you had a close bond with your family even though you disagreed with them
Mhm,
very passionately on some political things, but your bond and that love was there, and
yeah.
maybe that's why. Do you think that had anything to do with you being more open-minded to, like, when you saw this video, it even having an impact on you?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, we were always raised with, like, or I was raised, my entire family were raised on a base set of morals. My mom, took us to church all the time. We were in, CCD classes, all the sacrament. Everything was like it was very, very grounded. You appreciate everything you're given. You never take anything for granted. Um, if you're incredibly respectful towards everyone, it doesn't matter what they think or say. So when I found myself kind of like arguing with them all the time, you kind of like look at yourself like, why am I arguing with my parents like all the time over
Yeah.
politics? You know,
Yeah.
like I've never been this disrespectful in my life to where I'm actually like arguing and yelling over shit that that
Yeah.
to me you know
The
what I mean?
left is really good at convincing you. They have this saying that we would, I mean, I would say it too when I was in the woke left, which is like, the personal is political, the political is personal. And they have this really great way of trying to get you to insert political differences into personal relationships. I
Yeah,
think with the intent of destroying those relationships, honestly.
absolutely.
Yeah. So so then um so you had that kind of epiphany in that moment where you started questioning more things,
Mhm.
and then you said Star Wars was impactful for you because you went in and you saw this, and you were like, something, my gut's telling me something's off, this isn't like
Yeah.
normal. Tell me about your childhood and pop culture and entertainment. Like,
Ooh,
was
yeah.
what was pivotal for you when you were a kid?
My grandma's house. Honestly, like my grandma's house. My uncle loves Star Wars to the point where like he's showing it and showing his love of Star Wars to like his niece, his grandchildren. Um so when my grandma like all of my aunts and my mom, they were all educators, and so they would, they have work, and we would go to school, and we would get like dropped off at my grandma's house in the morning, because we all went to the same school. I have a huge family, but we all went to the same school, and we would get all dropped off together, all picked up together, and then dropped back off at my grandma's house. So um, in the afternoon, we were waiting for our parents to pick us up. Um, my uncle would bring over movies, like, so we could watch them, and Star Wars was one of them. Like the original trilogy was one of them, and so we would watch it, and like we just loved it. My grandma could like put it in and go make us something to eat. We would all just be like watching Star Wars.
And it's a
um
great story.
Oh yeah, I loved it. Yeah, we were all just like mesmerized by it. And then like, and my uncle would always just bring over like a bunch of different movies that he thought that like we would like. So Star Wars, the original trilogy was one of them. And so when the prequels came out, we like made an event of it. We would all go together.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a family thing. We would
I
go
remember there
together
were
and watch the.
lines, like, people were camping out and stuff, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah. We all went together, and then after The Phantom Menace came out, we made like this like a family home movie of The Phantom Menace, where like we all like dressed up in the characters, and we did like our own little performance. I have no idea where that video is at. My uncle still probably has it. But like we loved it so much. And then another one that I absolutely fell in love with was Batman. Like, I'm a huge DC
Mm.
fan, and he brought over Batman, and we watched it, and I was like, this character is amazing. I want to watch more of this character. So then I started watching like Batman the animated series. I
What
started
is it about Batman that makes him a great character?
The stories in it are compelling, especially in the animated series.
Mm.
They don't dumb down the stories for children. They're very adult themed topics, and they're interesting. That's I love it. I love all of the characters. They're not one dimensional. They all have like their own inner turmoil, all their own stories, and it deals with a lot of like darkness, and that's something that you don't watch as a kid, because like at one point you're watching Teletubbies, and then the next point we're like, whoa, Batman is awesome. It's like that switch over to young adulthood. um and the themes in there are really good. They don't dumb them down for kids. They show you kind of adult themes, but good storytelling. It's
Yeah,
just good storytelling, and it's kind of like, because DC is pretty dark, but it's written in a way where you can be a kid and watch them, and it's incredibly entertaining.
and, like,
That's
learning the human experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when you started doing, commentary on, like, Star Wars and other entertainment properties, so can you tell me a little bit about, like, what discovering what woke ideology was, or what was some of the stuff that you started to notice that was infiltrating into your favorite properties like Batman?
Yeah,
Or
I started noticing that the corporations weren't valuing the fans like they used to.
Mm.
you know because it's the fans that you want to come and see your movies. It's the fans that you want to come and buy any all the products that you make in to coexist with your movie. You want them to buy a lot of things, because you're marketing to them. And I started noticing that the marketing was changing like radically. um and from the director to the people in the corporations to the head of Disney, like the marketing was changing drastically to exclude fans, and that just boggled my mind. Where you have like the director like flipping people off, saying that like your Snoke theory sucks. Because that's one thing. If you want your audience to do one thing, it is to theorize what's going to happen in the next movie, because that means that you have their attention, you have their
yeah, they're
investment.
engaged.
Yes, and you
Yeah.
want them to theorize. You don't want to antagonize them and belittle them because you're going to write something better, and then what you write is terrible. Um so you want the fans to be engaged. You want them to start, thinking about the next movie and then the next movie, because you want them to stick around. To antagonize them and, make them feel like they don't matter, that you're better off without them. That's just something that was mind-boggling to me. That was so incredibly new to me, because I've always thought that like you want to market to the
You
people
value
who,
your fans.
yeah, you want to market to these people because they're the ones that have invested in this for years. Like for me, since I was a kid, growing up with this property and loving this property, loving these characters, spending money as an adult and as a kid, because I started working when I was 16, into this property, to buy products, to buy memorabilia, to have something in my hand that I can say, oh my gosh, I love this forever, I'm gonna keep it. You want those people, because those people are the ones that are going to spend money on your product and going to go see the next thing. And to exclude them completely is being like the new marketing strategy for some reason, hoping that the end game will give you a new audience, more money. It's just ridiculous, because why would you not want current fans money in addition to building a new audience and getting their money as well? It makes no sense to me.
It's almost like they think they can, if they belittle the audience enough, they can shame the audience into coming along with whatever ideology they're pushing or whatever
Mm-hmm.
crap writing they're doing now, because
Yeah,
they
it's
shame
it's
you if you
all
don't.
right, and it's very it's shaming the audience, bullying the audience, telling them that you're wrong for thinking this way, telling you you're wrong for not liking our writing. And the last time I checked, I didn't have to like everything. I can
Yeah.
say a movie is terrible and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
For some reason, Hollywood has turned into this industry where they feel like they're entitled to our money. They're entitled to like our praise. In fact, they feel like they're owed it
Yeah.
because they've put out like this product for you. So it's no longer, trying to write good stories and put out something that you can be proud of. It's let's just churn out some trash and they have to like it. Otherwise, they're racist, sexist, misogynist,
Exactly.
whatever.
That's what I thought you were gonna get to. That's what they do. It's like, you're not allowed to dislike it. If you dislike it, you're a racist, you're a
Yeah.
sexist, you're a misogynist. Like, they
Yeah.
just have the whole list of words.
They've put up this shield that's encouraging them to be incredibly lazy.
Mhm.
And that's what we're seeing now, just completely lazy writing.
So, tell me a little bit about what you do for, Geeks and Gamers.
Okay. Yeah, I do multiple streams with them. I'm on Tuesday night's main event. I do gaming streams, even though I'm a terrible gamer. I still show up for
Honey, you guys let me do Mario Kart with you,
yeah.
and you're not the only terrible gamer. I was like, "Oh, thank goodness." I I really thought going into it, I was so nervous because I had not played Mario Kart since, like, the '90s, I don't think,
Yeah.
and I really thought, I was like, "I don't mind if I'm in last place a few times, but if it's every time, that's gonna be really embarrassing."
Oh, that was me.
And
That's me
no.
100%. Like people are just like 12th place gang. Like, yep, I am the queen of the 12th
No,
place
but we
gang.
both beat Jeremy a couple times.
Wait, Jeremy's getting worse and worse. I don't care what you say. But yeah, I actually practice Mario Kart a lot on my Twitch channel with my chat. I'll let them join me on my
Oh,
Twitch
how
streams.
fun.
Yeah, so I'm getting a lot better. But yeah, I do streams with them for like for Mario Kart, Sunday Mario Kart. I'll do Fall Guys with the premium members, and I sometimes join in on the Fortnite streams, even though I don't play Fortnite. I'll just be there to hang out
Mhm.
with the team and interact with the chat while they're gaming. I also edit a lot for
You do a lot of
G&G.
editing.
Yes, I also edit a lot for G&G. So I will put out clips from Tuesday night main event topics, and I'll put them on the Geeks and Gamers clips channel. I also do a lot of like kind of like funny memeing clips, and I'll put that on there as well. I do all of like the reels and TikToks for Geeks and Gamers. Um, and then a lot of just like administrative stuff behind the scenes.
How did you get into editing?
I just fell into it, honestly. Yeah, I just fell into it just because I had to edit my own videos, so I had to
Mhm,
learn the programs to do it.
mhm.
So it's all
And
self-taught.
how much do you charge? I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Um, so what's it like working with, like, the evolution of Geeks and Gamers, which has become one of the most popular, along with Nerdrotic, one of the most popular
Yeah.
pop culture commentary sites. Like, what's it like being on the behind the scenes of that? And if I could ask you, like, take your temperature of where things are headed. Like, do you get the sense that more people are becoming dissatisfied with the woke infiltrating entertainment and more people are speaking?
Yes. I can say that wholeheartedly. Yes, especially with Marvel and this latest uh little TV show that they've churned out, She-Hulk. I have never seen more people come out against Marvel on YouTube for this show. Because I reviewed it with Jay, with Drunk 3PO on his channel. And it was torture watching that show. It was terrible. It was one of the worst Marvel movie or shows or whatever you want to call it that I've ever seen. They had a chance to do something great with this character because this is a Marvel character that's a woman who's strong already and who people actually really love. Like they love her characters. There have been iterations of different Marvel characters in the past that that they've tried out. They've tried to do like Ironheart, which is another version of Iron Man. They've tried to to do that to have like another character like take up the mantle, but She-Hulk is one of the characters that people really loved. They loved She-Hulk. And so they had a chance to do something really great with this character and they completely blew it just to spite the audience that just doesn't like Marvel, despite the toxic men, because toxic men are her main villain in this show, which is just ridiculous. And you can feel it. You can feel the tide turning on Marvel with this show because I was recommended so many new channels. These are brand new channels who are gaining traction, who are gaining subscribers because they're speaking out against Marvel. And like a bunch of their videos in the past were talking up Marvel. Like they loved Captain America and the Winter Soldier. They loved WandaVision. They loved Loki. And then you can slowly see the evolution of their channel. Like, what is going on with Marvel? Like the topics of their videos. What is going on with Marvel? The problem with Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Why Thor: Love and Thunder made me start to hate Marvel or something like that. Like it's like the evolution of these Marvel channels just completely turning around and being like, yeah, this is terrible. This is a
Yeah.
terrible show. I don't understand the purpose behind let's attack people on the internet.
Can you explain that to people who may not have watched this atrocious show? Because I did not watch it. I read a lot about it. And when you say that they made the audience and quote unquote like toxic men the target and the enemy in the series, they they really
Literally,
literally did that. Can
they
you
literally,
explain what
yeah.
happened in the last episode?
So in the last episode, there's this faction of, Redditors and like people on Twitter who they introduced in like the second episode. The writers are terrible.
That's
Like,
just this is a superhero. You guys just
yeah,
think about what she's saying. This superhero series, and the bad guy is a bunch of people on Reddit.
yeah, that's the bad
Okay.
guys. Um, and their plan is to take her blood and turn the leader into a Hulk because they don't think that she earned her superhero powers, that she just took them from the Hulk. The reasoning behind their motivations is so stupid. So it's like, okay, fine, but you like if you want to make that your villain, that's fine, but that's a really stupid villain.
Guys on
You know,
Twitter.
like if you want to make the toxic men your villain, that's fine. But they also made it a dumb villain, so it's kind of like, how did they even get away with this if they're so stupid? Like it's the She-Hulk has come out in the show and said, I don't want to be a superhero. Like she doesn't want to be a superhero. They still have the Hulk. He's still there doing his thing and saving people. Like they still have the Hulk. So for her to come out in her own show and say like, I don't want to be a superhero. I just want to be a lawyer. Why would they be mad? They're just mad at her existing because
But
she is coming out and saying that she doesn't want to be a superhero, but they're also saying like she didn't earn it. She didn't earn it. It's like, no, does who earns
earns it.
being a superhero? Who earns it? The last time I checked, Peter Parker didn't earn it. Like he was bitten by a radioactive spider. He didn't earn anything. It was
An
just an accident
accident.
and he chose to use his powers for good. This was an accident and she's not really choosing her powers to be good, to do good. She doesn't want to be a superhero. She just wants to be a lawyer. So I'm not understanding why they're so upset. So it makes absolutely no sense. The writing is terrible. But it goes, it shows you like Twitter users in their cars, right, complaining about her. They show a bunch of people complaining about it on Twitter. They show this special site that's supposed to be like Reddit or 4chan or something like that, that they created, and it's all hating on She-Hulk, and it has like terrible memes of She-Hulk that they made, and then it talks about finding her and like killing her and stuff like that. They want to kill this woman just for
This is their
existing.
caricature of their
Yeah.
critics, of people like
Oh,
you.
absolutely. And this is something, and it's all men. There's no women in there. It's all men. Um, and this is something that they were planning for 3 years. And when they come out, like after the show is aired or whatever, they're coming out and saying like, "Oh yeah, we had this planned for like 3 years." And during the show, they were laughing because they said that like they would take screenshots of people complaining about whatever about the show, and they would text it to each other. And they were laughing about it, saying like, "Ha, they're going to be so mad when they figure out that they're actually the enemies of the show." It's like, oh my god, give me a break.
So, what losers. I
Yeah.
also read that the creators admitted that so she's a lawyer, but the creators admitted that they didn't study much about how to write for a lawyer
No,
or to make her a good lawyer. They didn't
no.
bother learning
Didn't
anything
bother
about.
learning, didn't bother bringing anybody on, maybe to help write those scenes, who knew what they were doing. So the court scenes were a joke. There's ways of writing around that.
Mhm,
She wants to go to work, show her maybe like little tidbits here and there, or make her like show her coming home from work and dealing with stuff afterwards. But
mhm.
there's ways of writing around it. But no, they actually like had court scenes that were just laughable.
Terrible.
Yeah.
I think you're right about this series in particular being or exposing the fact that many new people are waking up to woken entertainment and how terrible it is, because one of the articles I read was a Forbes article, mainstream media, and in the Forbes article they blasted the show and they said, it could have been a good show, which is what I just heard you say. Could have been a good show, but unfortunately the creators had a point that they wanted to drive home about toxic masculinity that they elevated above good story writing.
Yeah, the
If
the
Forbes
messaging
said
the
that,
messaging took over. Yeah, the
yeah.
messaging took over. It could have been a great show. It could have been really good because it already had a powerful female character that people already loved. So it had that built-in audience. You could have created something great, but no, you wanted to put your message above good storytelling. And not to mention that like these activists that they're hiring, they're not talented. These people
Mhm,
aren't talented. All they know to do is to take a property, write their messaging, and just destroy it. Like they don't create, they destroy. They're
mhm.
because they're
Yeah,
not talented, which is
the
why they're
destroyers.
yeah, which is why they're infiltrating like entertainment. They just want to destroy it and then laugh at you because you're upset that they're taking what you love and destroying it. They'll laugh at you and they'll be like, "Huh, well, look, see, it wasn't done right in the first place." And the reason they want to take these properties that are already established properties is because they don't have the talent to write and create their own thing. So they
Mhm.
have to take all of these already established properties with built-in audiences and
Yeah,
destroy them. And that
you're
they don't the reason they destroy them is because they have no talent. They have no talent to create something new, and they have no talent to write already existing characters. They just destroy it.
it's so interesting because I just had a friend on. I had Epic Mike on, and then I had a friend of mine who's a huge Tolkien and Lord of the Rings
Mhm.
fan, and they were both talking about, Tolkien has a quote where he says something to the effect of what you just said, Stephanie, which about how evil cannot create. Evil can only destroy what is good. And they're
Uh-huh.
doing it now to Lord of the Rings with
Oh
Rings of
yeah.
Power as well. Taking something that's a known property because they can't come up with anything original, and then instead of improving on that property or making it that known universe, those known characters, that known creative vision, making it better, like just ruining it, just ripping the guts out.
Because they think that they can do it better. They really do. They're so egotistical that they
Yeah.
think that they can do it better than the person that created it. And they're 100% wrong. They can't, which is why the dialogue in it is so atrocious, because they think that, you know, they're creating like these quotable philosophical lines, and you know that are going to be quoted by people you know, for
Yeah.
years to come. And no, we're making fun of it because their lines are stupid, because they're not talented. uh like the fact that their heads are so big, that they're so egotistical. I don't know
Yes.
how they can even fit between a door, that they think that they can write something better than the person that created the property, or you know, to do it better. The fact that they and to think that it's going to be an improvement, that people are going to love it, that people are going to, you know, thank you and be appreciative of the fact that, look at what we did. They're going to love it. There's no way that this can fail. For it to fail and for people to not enjoy it, they're like, what is happening right now? How can people not like this? So you go back to the old adage of, oh, it's just trolls on the internet, and it's misogyny, and it's racist people who don't
Yeah.
like it.
It makes me think of, it's happened in sports as well. And
Hmm.
I'm not a huge fan of sports. If I'm hanging out with somebody that loves sports, I'll watch a game with them, whatever they want to watch. But I noticed it happening there as well. And I've heard friends of mine who are really into football over the past few years talking about how they can't even watch what used to be their pastime and something they enjoy and like a good game without these commentators now on ESPN and other places coming in and inserting social justice
Yeah.
into the game and into the commentary. And I think it's similar with the comic book. So like, what would make Superman better? If we talked about climate change, or like whatever their pet cause is, it's like, no. And nobody turning into the Super Bowl wants to hear about that either. That's not why they're
Hmm.
tuning in.
Yeah, a
Like,
lot of that, I feel like with when they did it with sports, um, I feel like a lot of it happened during COVID, yeah, because there were
mm,
no fans there, right? They weren't allowing fans, just the games taking place, so there was nobody there to boo. There's
yeah.
nobody there to stand up and be like, "What is going on?" You know, they can't do, so a lot of it happened during COVID, and that's where you got like the turnaround, and you know, all of the virtue signaling, all of that, because there were no fans there to boo it, so they can do it,
Yeah.
and nobody, they get no pushback because there's nobody there. Um, and then like now you see kind of like you do hear the boos, you do hear, you know, people singing even louder if they're not allowing something.
Yeah.
Um,
That's great.
and
I wasn't
but
aware of
but
that there's like pushback happening now.
Yeah, and now it's like, but it started then. It started then during COVID, so that's when, like, the commentator started talking even more, and they became even more bold, and it's emboldened to talk about, like, stuff like that, and, you know, bring race into it, and it's just continued on from there. But now they're
Yeah.
getting more pushback because people are loud in the games, and people are speaking out about it, because it's like, "Dude, this is sports. Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about?"
What do you think where do you think things are heading? Because you're saying that your perspective is that more people are waking up and more people are also becoming vocal about how they don't like this ideology being injected everywhere.
Mhm.
So what do you think is going to happen? I know in some different industries, like the comic book industry, we've seen Ripa push back and create his own comic book that
Yeah.
just sold gangbusters. And do you think that there's going to be that there it's going to be some kind of critical mass of people who move to alternative series and film that's not produced by the studios, or do you think that the studios are going to learn the lesson the hard way after enough years of this of ratings in the toilet?
I think that it would take, especially for like Disney and Marvel, they have enough money to continue to do what they're doing, to create and just like lose money on things. But you already see it with like with DC, you know, and oh god, I can't remember his name. The person who's taking over Warner Brothers, is it David Zaslav? I can't remember his name. Coming over and like canceling a bunch of things because they're just not
Mhm.
good. You know, pushing production back, waiting to, you know, canceling a lot of things that aren't making money, because they're not really in it to make money. They would like to, don't get me wrong, so they can, like, you know, throw it in your face and be like, look, our woke thing made money, but they're not interested in doing that. They would rather put the message above making money, because
Yes.
I mean, that's how activists are, right? They're not in it for the money. They're in it to yell at you and tell you that you're wrong and, push their message on you. They're not really in it to make money. And the ones that are in it to make money and the ones that, abuse that are, being exposed later on.
You were right, by the way. His name is David Zaslav.
David Zaslav. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that there is going to be a big shift. It's going to take a while longer for Disney, honestly, for like Disney and Marvel. I think like we already saw kind of a Hail Mary with Marvel when Phase 5 and 6 were incredibly just underwhelming for people who love Marvel. You saw that at D23 when they came out and they like showed the next phases of Marvel, and people were kind of like, oh, okay, all right, well, that looks good, okay. And then they just screamed at Daredevil because people loved that was a great show on Netflix. Daredevil was incredible. But now you see what kind of Daredevil we're going to get, because he was already introduced in She-Hulk and he was incredibly cucked in She-Hulk. So now I feel like they're throwing like a Hail Mary pass out with bringing back Wolverine and uniting him with Deadpool.
Is he going to be a black trans woman?
No. Because like they need that. They need fans. They need some interest in it, some investment. And they could have announced that at D23. They could have announced that Deadpool is back with Wolverine and they're going to do, but they didn't. They announced it like a week later in like this really easily made video on what's his name? I can't remember actors. Ryan Reynolds Twitter. Yeah.
Why do you think they did it that way?
Honestly, because I don't think that like they were planning on it. I don't think that they were planning on it. I know that Ryan wanted to do another Deadpool movie, but because Marvel is now owned by Disney, there's no way that they would be able to do like the stuff that they are getting away with in the first two Deadpool movies. I keep saying Deadpool movies. So I think that he wants to do it, but it's kind of like, well, where's your place? Because we can't have a rated R movie. This is Disney. This is new. This is Disney Marvel now. So I think that like, because it was so underwhelming at D23, like all of the announcements, they were like, okay, we need something big and huge to like, we didn't break the internet over here. We need something to break the internet. And so now they're finally like, I feel like they're finally kind of like, okay, fine, we'll give you your Deadpool movie and we'll add in Wolverine, because Wolverine was done. Like he did his last movie, Logan, and like we weren't supposed to see him again, but they're bringing him back. And I feel like it's because they're scrambling, because they need something. Yeah. But I think like there is going to be a shift soon. We're seeing it now. People are creating more. People are supporting other properties, independent writers, independent comic creators. Epic Verse is coming out. They want to do like movies and stuff like that. We have different platforms that are coming out to replace like YouTube, and we have local. So we have Rumble, we have Locals, we have
Odyssey.
Thank you. We have Odyssey. So we have like all of these other things coming up to replace like all of the mainstream stuff. And so I think that there is going to be a shift, and I feel like that shift started when and hey, this is true, when they started going after children and children programming, and people were like, that's just not right. Because growing up and like reading a bunch of stories, you always hear that like, the phrase like, oh God, kids grow up way too fast. And especially now, because they have like information at their fingertips. They have Google, they can Google whatever they want. They have YouTube, they can watch whatever they want. And so, people wonder like, why are kids just like losing their innocence at so young? And we want them to stay children,
to that
we don't
point,
want them to grow up too fast. And now they're just coming after kids, and people are kind of like, no, we've had enough. You don't take parental rights away. You don't target children and, put like this woke messaging and children programming. A lot of these adult themes, like I said, when I was watching Batman the Animated Series, there were adult themes in there, but it was constructed within the storyline of the characters. It never went into anything sexual or something like with identity, or you know what I mean? It never went into like that territory. It veered away from that. Whereas this, they write a story around those topics, around sexuality, around sexual identity, around things like that. So that is taking center as opposed to just, writing a story.
When you
Age-appropriate story.
said earlier that you liked Batman because they didn't dumb it down for kids and they dealt with adult subject matter, what I heard you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is you're talking about like grappling with what is right versus wrong, like
Mhm.
inner demons, values. What are your values? Loyalty, things
Yeah.
like that. Not like, here's my sex life, kids. Let's talk about
Right.
it, right? Like that
Right.
wasn't, and you're right.
No.
That was
Everything was
never.
always like at the center of morality. What
Yes,
is wrong?
morality.
What is good? What is
Yes.
bad? Yeah.
What is right? What is wrong?
What is right? What
And
is
now
wrong?
it's, what is your identity?
Mhm.
And tell me everything about your sex life. I actually read some of the stuff I read about She-Hulk, to your point, said that the creators gave interviews saying they wanted to create a sex positive show that kids could watch.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Why?
Before the show came out, they said that they wanted to create a horny forward,
A horny
tele
what?
horny forward. I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what that means, what horny forward is. But that was another interview that they did, during the production
Wow.
of She-Hulk, saying that, like, we wanted to make a show that was, like, so horny forward. So a show that showed a woman being horny and not shamed for it.
Oh,
Uh,
being horny forward. Oh,
being horny forward,
for
so
kids.
yeah, and now we know that, like, it's made for kids because honestly, when I was watching the show, I'm like, "Who's this made for? This show is terrible. Who is this show made for?" And a bunch of people who, like, the people on TikTok, the people on Twitter who are just whatever, they just love the She-Hulk show. They, the stan mentality of, "I'm just gonna support this to support this because of whatever reason." They're like, "Well, the show's not made for you." It's like, great. Who is it made for? Because I have no idea who the show is made for. The main character pretty much went on like a villainous journey. Like, that's a villain journey that she went on,
Mhm.
but she's supposed to be the protagonist in the story.
She's supposed to be the good guy.
Yeah.
I read in one of those articles that was talking about, the creator saying she wanted to create a sex positive show that kids would enjoy. She was bragging that she gets tons of emails from 9-year-olds. Like,
That when she said that, it reminded me of, like, parents who tell this story on Twitter of, "Oh my gosh, I was so proud of my child because she came out," and they make like this fake story about how their child did something like so incredible and they're so virtuous and they're so proud of it. I imagine that maybe like her niece or her nephew called her and was
let's
like,
hope it was
"What's
just
gonna
that.
happen next week, next episode?" I imagine that that's what it is. Um,
But either way, she wants to put forward that like her target audience is 9-year-olds.
Yeah, 9-year-old kids that are going to be shown, like, this woman just being completely horny, so horny that she'll, just swipe right on every single man and sleep with the first one who buys her a plate of fries. Like, this
Did that
she's
really
just
happen?
yes.
I thought you were just joking.
No. Yeah, the first guy to show interest in her because she's an incredibly narcissistic character,
Wow.
he was just like, "So what are your interests?" And she was just like, "Oh, you want to know about me?" And he's like, "Let's get some fries too. You want to share a plate of fries? Let's get those fries to go." And that's it. That's all it took.
Wow.
That's all it took. Um, and what's incredible about the show is, like, it really shows hookup culture. It's hookup culture, something that I completely disagree with. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to slut shame you. You want to share your body with a bunch of people, then go right ahead, but I just think that your body is sacred and you should be sharing your body with people who will appreciate it. That's my thinking. I think that an experience like that should be shared with two people who care for each other, who would appreciate that act. Um, but if you want to live your life with hookup culture, then that's totally on you. But they do show her in, doing that, engaging in hookup culture. And what's sad about that is that there's a line in the show where she just flat out says, "I'm lonely and unhappy." And I feel like if you do engage in that kind of a life, then that's pretty much like where it's
Yeah.
going to lead you, to loneliness and unhappiness, because, you know, there's just like, there's nothing there. You know, you're just getting your rocks off to get your rocks off. That's it. Like, you're just being satisfied to be satisfied, and that's about it. It doesn't lead to anything else. And when someone like mentions, you know, oh, you guys made love, she like literally cringes and says, ew, no, you know, at that, you know, like, no, it's kind of
It's
like, I don't do
so
that.
social justice feminist.
Oh
That's
yeah,
exactly the
absolutely.
attitude that, that hookup culture that you're talking about. I mean, I was raised in that. It permeates our culture now. It's like
Hmm.
that's what we learn as young girls now, and it's so funny because I have this internal thing in my head now too, growing up in this culture, where I feel the need, like you, to say, if I want to say something like, I think hookup culture is bad for human beings, and I'm telling you that because I care about you as a human being, I'm giving you my opinion. I still feel the need to also, like you say, but I'm not trying to shame you. Like, do what you want. It's up to you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's like they've sort of programmed us now to, like, that's the default. Hookup culture is the default, and the real edgy thing is to be like, oh, I think sex might be best reserved for someone that you want to bond with chemically, because your body's releasing
Yeah.
oxytocin, a bonding hormone, when you have sex. Maybe it's best reserved for someone that you want to be with, who loves you, like, for
Hmm.
life.
And
That's the edgy
it's
thing
so
now.
funny because they're just like, you don't want to catch feelings for somebody if you, like, you know, if you hook up with them more than once, don't catch feelings. It's like, what an odd thing to say, catch feelings.
Yeah.
What an odd thing. Like, you catch a cold. Like, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Catch feelings. That's such an odd way of saying, like, you don't want to, you know, uh have feelings for somebody, like,
Yeah.
for your brain to like create feelings for somebody, because yeah, it does. You like bond with people like that, and to just completely be able to just like not do that, not create a bond with that person, just sort of move yourself away from that, is it's just odd to me, you know.
That's why I think some people who are still in the hookup culture game are fans of just one night stands instead of repeated with the same person. Like her being like, "Oh no," and the character saying, "Oh no, we didn't make love, we just had sex," or whatever. It's because because the more you have sex with that person, you are bonding with them emotionally. You're gonna catch feels, like,
Hmm.
even if maybe they're a person you should not be catching feels for. Like, maybe just, I don't know. It took me a while to come to that. I feel like an old lady now that, like, is learning all this stuff I should have learned decades ago, where it's like, "Oh, that makes sense." Like, I
Yeah.
get it now. Um,
Yeah. So she can totally encourage, the show like really encourages that, just hooking up.
of course, for
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
For
For
kids,
kids.
Karen.
For kids. Yeah, for kids.
Um, Let me ask you this. Why is culture important? Why is critiquing culture and talking about pop culture important?
Because I feel like people have sort of lost values, and they're sort of shaming you for having any.
Mm,
Uh, you know, right now I feel like they're trying to tear families apart, and families should be at the core of your being,
yeah.
because they, you know, that they should be the ones that you go to and you rely on, as opposed to someone that you completely argue with, and you know, they create your makeup, you know. At least for me, that's how it is. um and I feel like they're coming after values, core values that everybody has instilled in them by their families, by their parents. You're raised a certain way, and at some point in your life, whether it be like at least right now, whether it be like in high school with these teachers, you know, telling you how to think, or in college with your professors telling you how to think, they're trying to take the place of the parent.
Yeah.
And that no one should ever take the place of the parent. You should instill incredible, like, just such sturdy values in your child, to where they're steadfast in their beliefs. And I feel like that's how um uh the fact that they're trying to break that
Yeah.
is really telling, you know, about like the type of person that they want to support them. Because I feel like if you break that value, if you break those core values, if you break the family, then you're getting a broken person who is easily molded into something
Yes.
that you want to mold them into.
Stephanie, I couldn't agree more. And then you're constantly looking for that parental figure too,
Yeah.
because they've broken that bond, and it's like, okay, well, I guess the government, I'll treat the government like my dad,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then you more likely to give the government all this power and control over you, because it's like, well, yeah, that's the government's job. They should be running this and that and all these other things that they have no business
Oh yeah.
running. Yeah, I
Yep.
couldn't agree more.
And I feel like that's why a lot of activists are getting into education now. And like, I come from a family of educators and they can't believe what is happening. I'm just like, oh my God, get out of retirement, go back,
Yeah.
go back in there.
We need a few good teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like when I see that, when I see all these teachers, I'm like, how are they getting away with that? How are they getting away with that? Like, I would hear, like, honestly, like every single Sunday after church, my parents, we would all go to my grandma's house. Like I said, like big family, just core, all of us held together. And we would always go to my grandma's house after church, and my parents, my mom and all of her sisters are always in the kitchen, all talking over each other. It's just so funny. But they were all talking about school because that was their job. They were all educators. And one of the things that they would talk about were how to make better lessons for the students, because they would have the common parental complaint is that my kid is falling behind, and so they would give each other tips on how to create a better curriculum for the kids so they don't fall behind. And now it's like, I want to just like put that on the back burner, and we need to talk about your pronouns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or about
Education
me.
comes,
The
yeah, or
teacher's like,
about
I want
me.
to talk about me and my
I want to talk about
identity.
me. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I shared my experience with my students and they were so proud of me. They clapped for me. It's like second grade teacher.
Yeah. It's
Seriously.
sick. I've seen
Yeah.
the same thing. Libs of TikTok is a great one that shares a lot of these videos of teachers on TikTok, and they're doing exactly what you said. That's not an exaggeration for anyone who hasn't seen these. They're going in there and bragging about how they got validation from, 8-year-olds
Yeah.
talking about their identity with their 8-year-old class. Like, that is
The
not
the
your
fact that they
job.
have to get validation from children
Yeah.
means that this is an incredibly insecure, unstable person who has no fucking idea who they are as a person. If you're seeking validation from children, I think you need to look inward and really, think about your life choices and the things that you're, I don't know, turning into, whatever you're
Yeah.
turning into. Because I mean, if you're sinking that low that you have to get validation from a child in order to feel special, there's just something's not right there.
Yeah. Can you tell me what gives you joy? So one of the things that I hear from my audience sometimes is people, once they start waking up to woke ideology and the things, just the crazy upside down world that we're
Mhm.
currently in, sometimes it can get overwhelming, or they feel like it's always like there's more every day of things that are happening. I mean, the CDC just recently said they're going to add the COVID vax to childhood immunizations. I mean, there's always something in the news that it's like, wait, what's happening? That. So how do you stay balanced, and what gives you joy in life?
I
What?
This is gonna sound terrible.
What?
I love listening to a lot of long form content, and one of the things that I listen to a lot of times is true crime.
Girl, I was gonna ask you, I saw this in your bio. Tell me about. I have the same. It doesn't sound weird to me. My husband thinks it's weird. Like, to unwind, he'll come in and I'll be listening to one of my favorite true crime shows, and he'll walk in the room and it's like, and then he removed the head, and he's like, what are you listening to? Tell me about, why do you like true crime?
I find it interesting in that with serial killers, it's all about the psyche, like what would drive a person to do this. And that's why I find it interesting, as far as like serial killers, like other crime stories, the motivations behind it, what would drive a person to do something like
Yes.
that, and really like the human experience, and like how what would break a person
Yes.
in either in their past, in their childhood, or something that they've done to lead up to whatever crime they're committing. I don't want to say that it like brings me joy, but it's kind of like a pastime. I love listening to the stories,
It's a
especially
pastime. something you
Yeah,
enjoy.
especially if it's a story that's resolved. One of the true crime YouTube channels that I watch is like Kimberlea, and she tells the stories in a way that you kind of feel it as someone who is like a member of the victim's family, and she'll always mention the victim's family and how the crime was solved, the murderer got sentenced here, the family got closure, and she talks about the family a lot. And so in that way it's kind of like, oh, good, the person is caught. If it's an unsolved case, then she'll talk about like how the family needs resolution, and she'll bring up some stuff like, if you have seen this person, if you have any information, like call this number or whatever, still looking for resolution. So but hers are really good. There's another one, Bailey Sarian, who like mixes both true crime and makeup, which is awesome. The way she tells the
I've seen
story.
hers. I've seen
Yeah,
hers. Yeah.
yeah, she tells the story in a very a fun way, I guess. And she'll insert her own opinions in it, and she tells even the worst story, she'll try to keep it a little bit lighthearted in her retelling of the story.
Mhm.
Another one is Stephanie Harlow. I absolutely love Stephanie Harlow. Hers are incredibly in depth in the storytelling. She does incredible long form content in that a lot of her parts are like 7-parters, and I just can't wait for the next one. um, but yeah, I like passing my time there. Something that brings me joy is just helping people. I love helping people, which is why I do so much for so many people,
Mhm.
and why I work a lot, just because I love helping people. And I was trying to help people even before I started like
You're a
editing
good
for them.
you're a people person.
Yeah,
Like, that's one of your talents, I can tell. Like, you're good with people.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that might also be maybe why you're interested in true crime in a weird way, because, I mean, you just said a lot of what I think about it. One of the things I like about true crime is it's a story of good and evil, learning about what drives people to commit
Hmm.
evil, but there's a resolution. I like the ones that are solved. I like getting to the end and knowing that the bad guy is in prison. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it's like good. And thank you for those recommendations, because there's two of those I have not watched before. I usually have you ever seen The Disturbing Truth?
I have seen The Disturbing Truth. Yeah.
Okay, he's also very similarly always talks about the victims and the
Hmm.
families, and brings the story back to them, and has a lot of respect for them, and he really hates the criminals. Like, he goes, yeah, he's got some pretty
Yeah.
he
I listen to a bunch of them,
yeah.
so I could recommend a lot of them.
Oh my goodness. Why haven't we done we should do a true crime
We should
stream
do a true crime
sometime.
stream. I
I'm in.
actually used to do true crime streams. I used to do True Crime Tuesdays on my channel. I used to do true crime streams. I
I
stopped
saw
because I don't
that.
have any time. But yeah, I used to do true crime streams and take stories and tell them to people who like haven't heard the stories.
It's also women who are more interested in it, I
Very
mean,
much.
not that there aren't men, but if you on average, I think more women are interested in true crime, and I think
Hmm.
again, it has to do with being interested in people and people's motivations, and the science of evil, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's because it's more, honestly, I think you're right. It's like the science of people. What could drive someone to do this, and the feelings that you get behind that, like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Whereas, I think like I don't understand that. But yeah, there are a lot more women interested in true crime. Like, I think I listened to maybe 2 men
Mm,
uh who stream true crime, but it's mostly women. It is mostly women.
yeah.
And I think
I
that it's just because of like the I think it's because of the emotion behind the crime as well. You can
yeah,
really like empathize with what the family is going through, maybe even what the victim went through before, whatever happened to them. Um, it deals with like you have to like really empathize with someone, especially if you're dealing with something incredibly gruesome. You can kind of like look sort of beyond that and sort of feel something on like the emotional level,
mhm. I
because
think
a
I
lot of
think
the
you're
crimes are
so
really
yeah, you're so right on. I mean, there's so many reasons. I don't know, it's fascinating, but it's riveting, and I really I enjoy the ones that are solved. I don't watch as many of the unsolved ones, but, because I get too angry about, like, but I think, especially if I think I know who did it and they're not in prison yet, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's like I can't handle that the justice hasn't been done yet,
Mhm.
Um, so uh, one last thing I wanted to ask you about. When I ask you about like what gives you joy, to take us back to the beginning, tell me about the furniture that you refurbish.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I would purchase or like find old furniture
Hmm.
pieces. Or it could even be like new or IKEA furniture that someone just doesn't want anymore. And I would take these furniture pieces, sand them down, paint them, add, add fixtures to them, and I would put them in a resale shop.
I
Yeah.
love you're doing my dream job.
Yeah, I did that. I did that up until COVID hit because uh stuff closed down. It took a little while longer for things to close down here in Texas, but it closed down, and so that place closed down too. And people were just like, I stopped doing that, and I had like caught up with all of the furniture pieces that I had, um, and I sold them, and I didn't do that. Yeah, I didn't go back to it, because I actually moved after everything kind of reopened, and I just didn't have the space to do
Right.
all of that anymore.
I forgot that you're in Texas too. Have
Yeah.
you have you been to Round Top
Mm-mm.
before? I just got back. Well, by the time this airs, it will have been a couple weeks since I got back. But this is going to air when you and I are in Orlando, which
Yeah.
last thing we have to talk about. Um, but Round Top, you and I should go together sometime. They have 2 antique shows a year,
Ooh, okay.
and the whole town is taken over by antiques dealers and people who refurbish furniture, and all kinds of artists come. And
We need to take Mrs.
it's so much
Nerdrotic
fun.
because she would love it there.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. And she's a Texan now.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll message you. They do one in the spring and one in the fall. So I'll let you know about the next one.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
Um,
I would love to go.
so tell people this is going to be airing Thursday. If you're watching this, if you're here for the live chat, this is airing on Thursday, the 27th. And we are currently in Orlando. Tell people about the meetups that are happening.
Yeah, we are going to have some Geeks and Gamers meetup, 2 separate meetups. I don't know the location because I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but we're having 2 Geeks and Gamers meetups in Orlando, and then we're also having a separate meetup for the people who aren't able, because I think like you had to RSVP and everything was booked to capacity. So we're having like a third, more casual meetup over at City Walk. But yeah, it's just all of the Geeks and Gamers team who can make the meetup are coming out, and we're going to be hanging out with people. It's very similar to the FNT meetup in Vegas, but this is hosted by Geeks and Gamers. We're going to have some merch there. We're going to have some surprise guests there as well that haven't been announced, so I'm not going to say anything. We're going to have
Oh,
some
cool.
surprise guests there. We're going to have some merch there. We're going to have a little surprise merch. I believe we're going to have a little bit of a surprise merch launch at the Geeks and Gamers meetup as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. I really enjoy these meetups. It takes a lot out of me as far as energy by the end of the night, but I love meeting people. I've tried to go to every single one so far. Um, and I absolutely love them. They're so much fun. If you're able to get to a meetup like nearby, because we want to have a lot more, because we are having a lot of fun meeting everybody, meeting people in our audience, then definitely go. It's such a different atmosphere, and you create like friendships with people
Yeah.
who come to these meetups. Like I believe like the last one that we did, in there was a I believe there was like a meetup in Boston, and like a lot of the people there like found each other, and they just have their own meetups every now and then in Boston. Like people just meet up.
I love it. That
Yeah.
makes me so happy. Yeah, the one that I got to go to was a FNT one in Texas.
Hmm.
That was so much fun. I'm gonna be there with Chrissy Mayer's Content House, and so I'll see you guys, and I can't recommend them enough. You guys bring out the best people. I'm not shocked that you sold out the first 2. It's, like, so many fun people, so I hope
Yeah.
if you guys are watching and you're in Florida, I hope we get to see you. Stephanie, tell people where they can find you. It's also below. You guys can, check out the video description below, but tell people quickly where they can find you online.
Yeah, you can find me on my YouTube channel. You can also find me on Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, and all at the same name, My Nerdy Home, no spaces. I also put out a lot of content on Geeks and Gamers and Geeks and Gamers clips, so you can find me there as well.
Cool. Thank you, Stephanie.
Of course, I had fun.
Cool.
Thank you to today's sponsor, the Church on the Square of Georgetown, Texas, which happens to be my church. My church is no longer allowed to advertise on Facebook, which is unfortunate because that's how I and a lot of other church members originally found them. They've been told that they violate community standards. There's no details there of what that means, but you guys know the score. Anyway, since they're not allowed to advertise, I'm here to give them a plug. You can find them online at thechurchonthesquare.org. You can also find videos of all the sermons and some other kinds of content on their YouTube page at Church on the Square. You can also join us. If you happen to be in the Georgetown, Texas area, we meet every Sunday at Ken's Guitars, that's Kenz, Ken's Guitars, right on the Georgetown Square. We meet outside, right on the square. Sometimes, if the weather's nice, you might find us there. You might find us outside in front of Ken's. But if you're local, I hope to see you. Thank you.